Stunning photos captures the everyday life in Berlin during 1920s.
Berlin in the 1920s was a city of many social contrasts. While a large part of the population continued to struggle with high unemployment and deprivations in the aftermath of World War I, the upper class of society, and a growing middle class, gradually rediscovered prosperity and turned Berlin into a cosmopolitan city. During this decade, Berlin became the intellectual and creative center of Europe, doing pioneering work in the modern movements of literature, theater, and the arts, and also in the fields of psychoanalysis, sociology, and science. A sophisticated, innovative culture developed in and around Berlin, including highly developed architecture and design, Bauhaus, 1919–33, a variety of literature, Doblin, Berlin Alexanderplatz, 1929, film, Lang, Metropolis, 1927, Dietrich. Der Blaue Engel, 1930, painting, Grosch, and music, Brecht and Weil, The Threepenny Opera, 1928, criticism, Benjamin, philosophy/psychology, Ung, and fashion. This culture was often considered to be decadent and socially disruptive by rightists. Film was making huge technical and artistic strides during this period of time in Berlin, and gave rise to the influential movement called German Expressionism. Talkies, the sound films, were also becoming more popular with the general public across Europe, and Berlin was producing many of them. The so-called mystical arts also experienced a revival during this time period in Berlin, with astrology, the occult, and esoteric religions and offbeat religious practices becoming more mainstream and acceptable to the masses as they entered popular culture. The University of Berlin, today Humboldt University of Berlin, became a major intellectual center in Germany, Europe, and the world. The sciences were especially favored. From 1914 to 1933, Albert Einstein rose to public prominence during his years in Berlin, being awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. He served as director of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Physics in Berlin, only leaving after the anti-Semitic Nazi Party rose to power. Politically, Berlin was seen as a left-wing stronghold, with the Nazis calling it the reddest city in Europe after Moscow. Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels became his party's Gauleiter for Berlin in the autumn of 1926 and had only been in charge a week before organizing a march through a communist-sympathizing area that devolved into a street riot. The communists, who adopted the motto "Beat the fascists wherever you encounter them," had their own paramilitary organization called the Roter Frontkampfverbund to battle the Nazis' Sturmabteilung, SA. Prostitution rose in Berlin and elsewhere in the areas of Europe left ravaged by World War I. This means of survival for desperate women, and sometimes men, became normalized to a degree in the 1920s. There were an estimated 500 such establishments, that included a large number of homosexual venues for men and for lesbians. Sometimes transvestites of one or both genders were admitted, otherwise there were at least 5 known establishments that were exclusively for a transvestite clientele. There were also several nudist venues. Berlin also had a museum of sexuality during the Weimar period, at Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld's Institute of Sexology.
If you like this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel.